I'll try again. Monica Pacheo with the State Department of Education. I'm so happy to be here tonight to talk about some opportunities that maybe is a new thought to folks, and maybe it's been tried in the past, and I'm going to encourage you to try it again if it didn't go as far as you'd hope. So, and that's talking about really thinking about selling to schools, and thinking the fact that really that's their your biggest restaurant in town, right? They're feeding the most kids, and don't think there's any other restaurant that feeds hundreds and sometimes thousands of meals, depending on the size of your district. So these are a great opportunity. And so what I want to do is just talk a little bit about
well, did we lose her? It looks like we just lost her.
Oh, no.
Well, I guess maybe Shannon, would you like to start, and we'll see when Monica comes back.
Yeah, well, for the sake of time, and actually I was just thinking if you would give like a, I know we all have a lot of information to give in a very quick period of time. Oh, we're gonna bounce back to her.
Okay, let's see.
I think we each get a few minutes here, so.
Yeah.
all right. Sorry, Shannon.
No, you're good. You're back.
I'm back. I apologize. Something happened on my system here and I just disappeared on y'all. I apologize.
Okay.
So let's see. So what I want to do first is talk a little bit about what are some of the things that go on in schools regarding their meals, so you understand some of the things that they face and the basic lay of the land for them. But then we're also going to get into where there are some great opportunities. So I'll start off with just going over some basics, such as most schools in our state participate in the federal child nutrition meal programs. Myself and a team of folks here at the State Department of Ed help schools follow these programs, administer these programs. And so these are the things that you may have heard of in the past, like the National School Lunch Program, the School Breakfast Program. You may have heard of the Healthy Hunger-Free Kids Act. That was legislation that came back in 2010 and basically really updated the school meal program requirements following the newest dietary guidelines. So if some of you recall, there used to be something called the Food Guide Pyramid. And then at one point, and this is back in 2010, it became My Plate. So that was updated guidance on some of the best recommendations for eating healthy meals. And the school meal programs are based on that. So we're going to take a look at what that looks like in a minute. The other thing that happens is outside of those meals that the schools provide, there are also rules, whether they're state or federal, regarding the foods that are sold, what we call a la carte, outside of that meal program. So if the school cafeteria is selling some additional snacks in addition to the meal, these rules count. But it also applies to other areas that are not under the control, so to speak, of the cafeterias. This could be vending machines, fundraisers, school stores, even sometimes the foods that are sold at different sporting events and activities. So there's a lot of rules and regulations to follow. That being said, you know, we want to also encourage you to know that the schools are really good at following the rules and regulations. They're pretty adept at this point. So don't let the fact that they have these rules prohibit you from thinking that it's a good idea to sell to them. They know how to work your stuff into their program, basically. So just so you know, though, that there's a lot of things going on behind the scenes to get that meal out for the kids. And the reason they participate in these programs is they get federal reimbursements in areas where finances are difficult for families. Many children are coming to school and not having to pay for those meals, but someone has to pay for them, and that is our federal dollars. So that is how they're staying in business, so to speak, because they're getting paid by the federal government to serve these meals, and the federal government saying they need to be following these rules. Then again, along came COVID-19, really threw us for a loop, threw the world for a loop, of course. But if you recall, as soon as that day came when they announced that schools were going to have to close for a period of time, and boy, do I remember it. It was on Friday the 13th, March 13th of 2020, when that announcement came out that the following week schools were going to have to close. The next day after schools closed, those school food service providers were giving out meals in bags out in the weather under tents so that the kids could still get those meals. They recognized what kids and families needed. People were not working, people were not able to get out much, and they pivoted and they figured a way to feed those kids. So remote meals, all children eating for free, regardless of financial status at that point. There were definitely some supply chain issues. And this all happened because there were many waivers that USDA granted the schools to allow them to be more flexible with some of the requirements that are involved with the school meal program, because they recognized that they just needed to make sure the children were being fed to help take that burden off the families during this tough times. And I did mention the supply chain issues. Those are ongoing, and I know you're all well aware of that. And, you know, when you go in the grocery store and see what the prices are, when you see what you have to produce and what it costs you to produce your food and the equipment and the supplies you need to do your job. So the same type of impact is happening with the school meals. So we are very aware of the fact that that remains a challenge. And if you could say that it was a silver lining with COVID-19, is it really got folks thinking about ways of finding food closer to home. You know, some of these supply chain issues were because things are being trucked around the country and supplies are coming from other places. And then this sort of focused the spotlight on the fact that, you know, right down the road or not too far down the road are folks who are being able to provide some of the food you might need. And so that's definitely a positive that's come out of this. And finally, one of the things that is important to remember is that because they're receiving federal dollars, schools must follow federal procurement guidelines. So don't let that scare you. It sounds like, oh no, we all have to go out to bid, and that's not what we mean. And Shannon's going to get into that a little bit more as well. She's worked really closely with a lot of schools and a lot of farms to figure out how to make these procurements easier. Do know that there are federal guidelines. And so that is going to be something of the decision process for schools. If you could go to the next one, Becca. So just to give you a picture of the meal pattern requirements, this is an updated version of the meal requirements that have to be served for a school lunch for this school year. So without going into nitty gritty, I did it more for the visual, but you can see that they have to be age appropriate. So they have K-5 grade group, grades 6 through 8, and then the grades 9 through 12. So basically elementary, middle, and high school. And there are different size portions being required to be served to the kids, and makes sense. You got little kids, middle school kids, and then, you know, high school kids who a lot of them are bigger than us. And then they have different food components they have to provide in every meal, and they have to have certain portion sizes. So again, I don't want this to scare you, but just know if you hear the school director saying something like, you know, I'm going to need to be able to serve so many portions. It's because they have to provide these items at their meal. And so they want to ensure that they're staying compliant with their regulations. So if you want to go to the next slide, please. So I mentioned the procurement. And again, I didn't want you to panic and say that this has to be all sorts of formal purchasing. The basic procurement guidelines state that up to a certain threshold is something called a micro purchase. You can go out and buy it. If you think it's a good price, you go and you buy it. Up to the next level is something called the informal purchase or the informal threshold. And for that, you just need to have some, you know, details as to what you want to buy. So all your people involved know what you're looking for, and then you get 3 quotes. And it's only after you get above that that next threshold that you go into a more formal bidding process. And the federal government has set thresholds, and you can see the federal threshold is $250,000. So I think most of us are going to be buying under $250,000 for a purchase. But you also have to remember that they need to go more stringent if their own district is stricter with the thresholds. And there they are. Many districts have much lower, thankfully, purchase requirements, but certainly well within the realm of what would be considered either a micro or a very informal purchase, just needing to get some quotes. So, you know, that would be something you would have as a discussion with a director if you approached one for an opportunity to double check what their purchasing thresholds are, so that you could know, you know, whether you're going to have to give them a quote, or you can just have a conversation and, you know, discuss what your opportunities are. And And they may ask for things in writing. And again, don't let that throw you, because basically, because they're getting federal dollars again, they will get audited periodically. So they just need to show that proper trail of documentation to show that they've gone through the right steps to do this procurement. So they may say, I need to have your quote in writing, please, and that would be the reason why. They'll have to keep that information together so that when they do get their audit, they can show that they've got, 3 quotes and here's the documentation for it. So again, nothing that could, stop the purchases from happening, just a few, steps that have to be taken. And then next. So since we were talking about procurement, let me tell you what also has happened with schools and COVID-19 and funding. Because USDA has recognized, and the federal government has recognized the stress and strain this has put on the school food programs to be able to provide these meals for the children, there are some amazing funding opportunities that have come our way. So there's something called supply chain assistance funds that all districts in the state have received. They've actually received 2 rounds, and the 3rd round will be administered later this school year. And these funds are designated to only be used to purchase minimally processed or unprocessed foods. So the schools are getting that opportunity. There is something brand new, hot off the press as of today, literally, that there is an opportunity for local foods for schools. And this is funding that's going to go to the schools that will provide them opportunities to purchase from local producers, with a focus especially on socially disadvantaged and small producers. So additional funding is coming their way this school year as well. And there's also some grant opportunities. We have a great state grant opportunity that just happened this year. Now we're about to be done with the 2nd round of applications, the Connecticut Grow for Connecticut Kids grant. So this provides up to $25,000 in funding for schools or other entities to help either develop farm to school programs or support. It can go towards some food purchasing. It can go towards supporting, making those connections they need to keep this going. And then finally, there is the National USDA Farm to School grant. That grant application period is currently open and will close, I believe, in January. And a little larger of a grant to write and put together, but again, a big opportunity. And we've been very lucky in our state to see that every year there's at least a couple grant awardees that have received from school districts to state agencies who help support other programs. So lots of opportunities. I think the next slide again, and I can step away. So I'm going to let Shannon take over.
Thanks, Monica. It's always amazing that Monica can distill a hugely complicated system into 10 minutes and 5 slides. And as farmers, you don't have to know a lot of the ins and outs. A few things I want to lift up from what Monica shared and what I'll get into very quickly here, because I know we don't have a lot of time, is y'all are going to be under the micro purchase threshold. The growers that were in our little breakout room, and then I'm assuming some others, it's per invoice. So when you are approaching a school district, and the food service director is the title of the person who makes those purchasing decisions, we're talking about direct purchase under a micro purchase threshold, which, even though the districts can make it much lower, will still, be the way that you would create a procurement relationship to start. That's your gateway. That's your entry level. So this slide is like real things that growers have said, and almost none of these things are true. I would say none of these things are true. I won't spend time busting every myth apart here. And one of the things I will lift up out of also what Monica said is, yes, there's districts, they're going to say, well, I serve 10,000 meals a day. And one of the things that Put Local in Your Tray works on with Monica, with SDE, and with Department of Ag is to educate food service directors about ways they can integrate local food, taste tests, featuring just one school, integrating it into recipes they already are doing, just a way to start to bring the local food in, because a lot of them are, aren't going to, if they come out the gate with, well, I buy, I need 1,000 pounds of carrots a week for 10 weeks. Like, that's not what we're talking about when we're talking about gaining access to farm to school market. So next slide. And a lot of these purchasing decisions are built on relationship. So that question, like who has some kids in their local public school, that is a great like entree, because the food service directors, and aside from having more money, right, at their to use to purchase local, and more money coming through various programs, that is very real, that they will be able to spend on local food, and the support to support them to also make good use of this money to make good impact, is because they care about the community. They understand the benefits of local on the, you know, environment and the economic health of their their town or their county. So while we often hear that price is real, money is real, it's a tool, we all need access to this tool and are trying to use it wisely, that we have food service directors definitely understanding spending above and beyond than what I think the conception is about like the lowest dollar, because certainly they're trying to maximize because they're feeding kids on very narrow margins, and they're feeding lots of kids. So just to keep that in mind, that is a big motivating factor. Everything else can be figured out. If you care about this, if you believe in it, everything else, there's resources in the state, myself, like people resources and otherwise, to help get through the rest of it. Next slide. And that in that picture, last picture, was Elizabeth Fisher. She's the food service director in Vernon. She's been buying a lot of food from Cloverleaf Farm, all no bid, no contract purchasing, through a micro purchase because it's below that threshold. And she's doing her due diligence to keep track of that, so she can report it if asked. So these are some things like, are you ready? And I know that it really is good to get a few years, what can you produce? How can you produce it? What is your infrastructure like to wash and pack? While agriculture and local farming is unpredictable and increasingly unpredictable, there is some predictability in it as you start to understand your land and develop, your skill set, and try to head off, the many pitfalls of farming. So, and that's something that building those relationships with food service directors has. If you're talking about, oh yeah, I always grow lots of cabbage, like I have cabbage in the fall, and yeah, maybe in the fall your field will be under 20 inches of water, which happened last fall to farmers. So, the good thing about food services is, given enough warning, they can order the food, they can order it off the truck, as we say. So these are just some things to ask yourself, and I'll share that Trey has some even more detailed, because this is some of the questions. Is they're buying lots of dairy. That system is kind of set up and big and has lots of regulation. Eggs also have lots of regulations. So Trey, and what we mostly work with is fresh fruits and vegetables. Okay, next. I'm trying to get through this really quickly. So these words, being responsive and responsible, are right out of the contracting language through USDA. They ask that vendors be responsive and responsible. And so in your business, this is a little bit of what those things mean, which I'll just let you read, because and then you'll be getting these slides and a little bit of tips and tricks on how to demonstrate that you are responsive to their needs and responsible about delivering something that has been agreed upon. And again, there's a lot of flexibility. Food service directors are planning their menus about anywhere from 3 to 8 weeks out. So 5 to 6 is a sweet spot. But meanwhile, they're also featuring certain things. So while you could say, yeah, 5, 6 weeks, yeah, that's when this will be ready, that'll be ready, you start to have the conversation about planning, what would you like to buy? That's kind of the cycle that they're going on. And then how they're serving it can depend. Are they adding it to a menu item? Are they going to do a taste test, etc.? So I'll just go to the next slide here. I think I'm almost at the end here. Again, I can't emphasize enough micro purchasing, because this is where this is a big gate that opens up a lot of these things. The directors must show that they've been competitive. So let's just take fall kale. Who here has kale right now? Put in the chat. Greens, kale, spinach, chard. I mean, who's got delicious greens right now that they would love to box up 20 pounds, bring to a school that they can integrate into a taste test? How much would that 20-pound box of kale cost, right? A 20-pound box of kale will make about 150 taste tests of like some sauteed kale, where they get a little bit in there, or they massage it up with a salad recipe. And about 50 pounds of kale is what you need to serve about 60 meal servings based on the nutritional content. So, you know, if the food service director, she could call 2 farms and be like, I'm looking for kale because I want to do this kale salad recipe in 3 weeks. That's all. Oh, you'll have kale. How much? About, okay. And just writes it down. And okay, that's showing open competition, and documenting it. And for farmers, you know, they don't want it to be donated. They want to pay for it. It has to look good. You know, you want it to be bug free. And I don't even know if I say this in this, but, you might as well go to the next slide so that everyone can stare at this one for a minute, because this has some important things. Is that and also I would love to hear in the chat, who here has taken a food safety course, done research about on-farm food safety. You're probably all FSMA exempt. No one here is going to have GAP certification. And a very important thing as well, food safety is paramount, and you need to demonstrate that you have knowledge of food safety and maybe even talk about the different ways that you are careful and your, you know, water supply. And this is a whole big issue. The districts, the federal government has no rule saying you have to have those certifications in order to sell to a school. So I say that carefully, because that doesn't mean like there's no rules. A district can make rules. A contract management company like Chartwells or Cisco can make those rules, but the government does not say for a farm to sell to a school, you have to be food safety certified in some way. But that relationship that you're forming will demonstrate to the food service director that you can talk about food safety, and that's key. Of all the farms doing a lot of work with schools, I'm going to say none of them have food safety certifications, and they have great wash and pack systems. They know the food is good and clean and going out, and they feel confident about it, and they have liability insurance. And with that, there's lots of partners in the state working liability insurance, and you need that for farmers markets. Pretty much for any wholesale. Lots of partners are working on this to help farmers and to help schools and pre-K, ECE, early care, daycare centers do this. So reach out to us so that we can answer the many, many good questions that you have.
Great, excellent, thank you. So we will have time for question and answer at the end, of course, and I will also send out the contacts of these folks after the fact, but we're going to move right along to Rosemary. Rosemary is the founder and owner of Healthy Plan Eat, and she works with a lot of farms in Eastern Connecticut. So I'm going to let her go ahead and take it away.
Hi, thanks for having me here today. It's nice to meet all of you. So I'm the founder of Healthy Plan Eat. It's an online marketplace for food from local sustainable farms. We work with farms around Connecticut that are committed to sustainable growing practices. So I'll just share my screen for a minute and show you a little bit what our website looks like. So this is healthyplaneat.com. You can order now, and we have a section where people can order for our in-person pickups. We also do a sustainable shipping program. And if you are interested in selling wholesale, that would be through delivery. So this is just what it looks like if a regular customer were to come and visit the site. We have a list of different farms that we work with, and I'll just find one here. So here's provider farms. So each farm has their own page where you can share information about your farm and also some information about yourself. And then you can list the different products you'd like to sell. So you can kind of think of it like Etsy marketplace, except for farmers. So that's just a little quick tour of what it looks like to a regular customer. We're in the process of doing some updates to the website, which will make it easier for wholesale buyers to be able to order. So currently wholesale buyers can order now. So they can already do that, but we're going to be changing the layout so it looks a little bit more similar to what they might be used to seeing if they were to order from one of the big wholesale distributors. And we're also going to be adding some invoicing features too, because currently right now buyers just pay immediately using a credit card. So we've got some new updates on the horizon. So what can you do when you're part of Healthy Planning? So you can add information about your farm and kind of build a farm profile or page. You can upload all your own inventory. So photos, prices, the quantities you have available. You can set different distribution options. So you could say, okay, we want to deliver to these towns, we want to have a minimum order value of X amount, and then you can manage your incoming orders. So what we're looking for, you do not need to be certified organic to be part of Healthy Planet, but we do want you to follow those general farming methods. So no synthetic pesticides, no synthetic fertilizers, no GMOs. So if you're part of Healthy Planet, most of what we do is direct to consumer, but we also sell to local schools, and we're going to be expanding into sales with restaurants, shops. What we'd like to do is have it kind of be like, I don't know, a Cisco or one of those big distributors, except only local small scale farms, so that if someone who buys wholesale wants to order locally, that this would be the place where they would want to go. So if you want to sell on Healthy Planet, there's no monthly fee, there's no setup fee. We do ask that you have insurance, so you can send me a certificate of your insurance. Healthy Planet does not buy the products, but there is a commission on sales made through the site. And if you are interested in finding out more information or potentially joining, you can sign up as a farmer at healthyplanet.com. And if you do that, email me too. I'm Rosemary, and I can be contacted at info@healthyplanet.com, and that can kind of kick off our discussion. And I'm happy to do a Zoom demo with you to show you more of like the back end of how the site works for farmers. We're a little limited on time. It takes a little bit more time to kind of walk through all of that, but I'd be happy to do that one-on-one with people who are seriously considering joining. So, yeah.
Great. Rosemary, there's one more component of your program that regards the like shipping of product through the local postal service. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So, Healthy Planet was awarded a USDA local food promotion program grant, and one of the things that we're doing as a part of that grant is a sustainable shipping program. So, what that involves is you can list like a farm food box, you can call it whatever you like, but it's a box of produce, and we ship it through the U.S. Postal Service. I can connect you to a representative who's been onboarding all of the farms, and we can get you set up with a few programs where you can ship your food affordably. So at lower rates than what you would see if you just walked into the postal service, your post office. So I also have some supplies available for that as well. So I have like boxes and insulators and things like that to get people started. Right now we are only doing that with certified organic farms, but yeah, happy to have a discussion if people want to learn more about that too.
Awesome. Super. Thank you. Well, that was a quick fly-by night of Healthy Planet, but there'll definitely be time for questions after the fact. So thank you, Rosemary.
Thank you.
So next we're going to move on to Chelsea. Chelsea works with Click Willimantic, and they are starting all sorts of new and exciting things, but I will let Chelsea speak to that. So.
Hello, everyone. It's so nice to be here with you all. Thank you for giving us this spotlight to share what we have going on at Click. So I'm just going to start off by sharing our mission, just to give a little Snapchat of what Click is all about. And our mission states, grow, cook, share, recognizing the historical and institutional injustices of the American food system. Click aims to grow a locally based, just, healthy, and sustainable food economy. And Click is a shared use commercial kitchen. We provide opportunities for farmers and culinary entrepreneurs, including those with low income, to incubate food businesses while improving the health and vitality of our local community by teaching gardening, culinary arts, nutrition, and other food-related classes, all informed with a social justice perspective. So in many words, just a little background about Click. We are a nonprofit food hub in Windham, Connecticut. Windham, as many of you know, is a small urban center in a largely rural county in northeastern Connecticut. Windham experiences poverty, unemployment, and child food insecurity rates far above the state average. So we provide subsidized, affordable rates, giving access to shared use commercially licensed kitchen space. We give farmers and other food entrepreneurs access to a place to process food and make products. Our commercial kitchen program currently has 29 active food businesses. This includes farmers making value-added products like jellies, jams, pickles, relishes, many different things. It also includes bakers, food trucks, specialty product makers, for example, our hot sauce guy, catering, and more. We also provide, as kind of snapshotted in the mission, community education in the form of food safety training to local farmers and food entrepreneurs. And then we also offer community classes on cooking and nutrition, or essentially anything pertaining to food. So growing food, cooking food, processing food, food as medicine, food justice, and more. And we offer classes in English and in Spanish to meet the needs of Windham's sizable Latino population. We are the only facility of its kind in northeastern Connecticut. And basically, we are moving forward, and we believe an extremely big piece of this food system infrastructure is the processing link. And so we're looking to strengthen that processing link to in turn strengthen the local food supply chain. So we have a few programs beginning, as Becca mentioned, but the program I wanted to talk to you all about today in depth is called the Click Aggregation and Distribution Collective. The goal of this program is to establish and broaden relationships with farmers and producers and the food distribution community to ensure fresh, nutritious, and culturally relevant foods are reaching underserved communities in our area. Through the work of this program, we are forming a collaborative of local farmers, prioritizing small and socially disadvantaged farmers. We will be purchasing from this collective and then distributing what is purchased through a network of 3 community food access programs. And this will go from the beginning of spring 2023 through October of 2024. So the span of 2 growing seasons. And within this program, we've agreed to source at least 80,000 of all food commodities from Connecticut farmers. We have received in this program from the USDA 160,000 for food purchasing over the span, as I said, of the next 2 growing seasons. And we hope that we continue to, this will kind of feed into strengthening the processing link. And just to kind of touch too, Click is and will continue to seek ways to make this program more permanent and sustainable. We're kind of receiving this big chunk of money, but along with that, we're hoping to just kind of continue, and we are seeking lots of different ways, like I said, to make this more permanent and sustainable. Just to expand on that, alongside this aggregation and distribution program, we also have received the Food Vision Prize, where we are partnering with EastCon to strengthen our region's food system. With this, we have received a $200,000 prize from the Henry P. Kendall Foundation, and this is going to be used to expand our processing capabilities. So really create that infrastructure within Click to be able to process food and processing capabilities so more local farmers can supply local food to students in Connecticut, as Shannon and they were mentioning through the Connecticut School and Food, Farm and Food. And this grant, like I said, will help start the planning construction of our processing kitchen. And we just look to grow from there. So a lot of questions have come up about special insurance needed, certificates, forms, things like that. And to be fully transparent, we're still in the process of solidifying all of this. But a lot of this will be, a lot of the answers to these questions will be dependent on a conversation that we want to have and forming that collaborative or collective, as I mentioned above, which is a big piece of this local food purchasing assistance grant that we just received. So we will be gathering this farmer collective quarterly, beginning on November 30th from 5:30 to 7:30. And the hope is just getting all the farmers in the same room with these distributors as well to formulate a plan that works best for everyone. And I'll have Becca put the link in the chat if you would like to join us for that day. It's kind of just an RSVP. We'll feel free to bring your family if you would like. I know people are busy, weeks are busy, so we'll be offering dinner as well. And we're just gonna kind of get together and answer some of these questions and gather and start the conversation. The products that we are looking for may vary as well as we work through this program and take into account the feedback from the recipients that are receiving those food boxes, and then also the farmers, what they are able to provide. But just a little estimation that was used for the grant application, bulk vegetables over the next 2 growing season, we're looking at kind of 40,000 pounds. Salad greens, we're looking at 1,000 pounds. Berries, 400 pounds. Tree fruit, 3,600 pounds. And we'll kind of further discuss this at that collaborative as well. But just a note, we've gotten already a lot of feedback from recipients of these food boxes, and they are looking for a lot of things like tomatoes, peppers, onions, garlic, fruits, greens, dairy, grains, and beans. Beans has really been a really big one as well. Produce can be delivered and picked up. Another thing that's going to be discussed in the future, but we have the capacity to do both, to have the farmers bring us the food and deliver to Click, as well as having us pick it up at the farm. If any of this is of interest to you, or you want to learn more or be up to date with the latest as we move forward, we use a platform called Network for Good, and we have created a group that will receive updates. So kind of like a listserv. But sometimes because of that platform, it can go to junk. So just if you see something from Network for Good, that's us. And then once you open that, you'll receive them in your inbox. And I'll have Becca put that in the chat as well. And yeah, so the best contact is me. I'm Chelsea Charrier. and I am in the role of processing manager, and will be organizing the purchasing and distributing for this program. So also I want to offer, if you would like to set up a meeting, check out the space at Click, learn more about our construction projects, things that are moving forward, feel free to call us at Click, and I can give that information to Becca to send out, and as well as my email. I just want to offer, however communication is easiest for you, please reach out in whatever manner that makes sense to you. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it about Click. And yeah.
All right, excellent. So before we launch into our question and answer session, I just wanted to note, I really appreciate everyone coming tonight. And one of the things that we asked for help with is filling out a survey. So I just dropped a link in the chat to give us some feedback about how tonight went. And that's really to help us kind of report back to our funders and also learn how to make these better for everyone. So if you can either now or after the fact, click on that link that is the last thing in the chat there and fill it out, that would be greatly appreciated. But I want to open it up now for questions. Feel free to drop things in chat and I'll help manage that. Obviously, if things are super quiet, you can pop in and unmute yourself and turn on your camera and things like that. But I'm going to start us off with a question because I have a burning question myself. And that is, how do meat producers fit in to these sort of situations? I know for farm to school, it's probably not going to work because there's a lot of things that a lot of health stuff that needs to happen and things like that. But for Healthy Planet and for Click with their plans going forward, how do meat producers fit into this? Either one of you can go, Chelsea or Rosemary.
Yeah, I can go. You know, as I said, we're kind of in the beginning stages of this, but as we wrote the grant and we kind of get more feedback from recipients, we definitely are open to meat and getting local meat, especially into those food distribution, into the distributors to get them in the local feeding programs, into those boxes is definitely something that we are open to.
Right now I only work with a couple producers that do meat, Whitegate Farm and also Cugnos Farm in Colchester. And they use non-GMO feed, so that's something that I'd be looking for, but yeah, happy to chat with anybody who does meat and would like to learn more about Healthy Planet.
Is there any sort of limit or like minimum that they may have to provide?
No. So with Healthy Planet, the farmers can control all of their own inventory, so you can just list whatever you have available. There are no minimums, no maximums, just yeah, whatever you would like to offer through your own kind of online store. And yeah, I haven't sold meat to the schools, but you know, that's meat is something that we can definitely sell on the platform to other buyers.
Chelsea, were you about to say something? No, okay. Shannon and Monica, do you want to talk about the special situations where meat would be used in school?
Monica, you want to go first?
Sure. Well, I was just going to say, never say never. And so I guess what I'm saying is, I would say definitely it's probably not going to be something they feature, say, weekly on a regular rotating menu. But certainly I am aware of some schools that have, made the effort to find a local producer for a special meal, celebration, holiday, those types of circumstances. So it can be done. Some schools have more capacity than others to work with a local meat producer and to work with a, raw product. One of the things I would encourage you to do is, if you're interested in working with the school system, is to really meet with the food service director to find out what their kitchen capacity is. Because, if you think back to your days in school, and I go back way back than most of you, and to my days in school, some of the schools built didn't think a lot about capacity of kitchens. And some may or may not have the ability to handle some of that. But certainly it's happening. And, again, I'd say on a very small scale. Shannon, how about you?
All I would add to that is because the cost is significantly more, that the schools are just trying to make the most out of their dollars. So start having that conversation, starting small. I did talk with a meat producer just last week who was like, how can I get connected? And so doing that individual reach out, because there are a lot of great small scale meat producers in the state, but the cost is something that would be a rich conversation to figure that out, to see what they could buy, what would make sense, how would they use it. I would say like ground meat, like if you have a lot of ground meat, the lower and sort of easy to cook into chilies and stews and things like that, that would be kind of the conversation. They're not going to break down chickens in the school scratch kitchens.
So we had someone bring up food safety plans and certifications. Just gonna drop one link in there in the chat, but I'm also currently looking for another one. We actually have someone at UConn Extension that runs a food safety course that I will find the link to and drop in chat. And FYI, Department of Ag or USDA, again, I'm finding the information as we talk. Shannon's nodding her head at me. Shannon might speak to this for us.
No, I'm trying to talk to my child. There is a FSMA food safety course through UConn Extension Food Safety, which is the link that Becca dropped in the chat. It's $50. And even if you're not, like definitely not FSMA, that you are under the rule, you don't have to adhere to the rule. The course is really comprehensive and great, and it gives you a really good background on food safety, and a lot of good resources. And Indu, who teaches it, is a great person. And they go through how do you write up like a standard operating procedure? It doesn't, just how do you talk about food safety? There are a lot of very common sense things. Yeah, thank you, Patty. It's and I can find some more things. But that's a great place to start, and that class is coming up.
Yeah. And if you are required to get food safety certification, again, as Shannon mentioned, many of you are probably not required, but if you are, there are options for helping you with those on-farm food safety program expenses, and I just dropped that link there. But if you're really not sure about whether or not you qualify for that, I'm going to drop another link. Oregon Department of Agriculture put together this really great FSMA produce safety rule decision tool, and it'll just take you through step by step to let you know whether or not you need that food safety training. But regardless, it's always a helpful thing to have a training, and if you feel like you have the time, you have the ability to incorporate that into your day-to-day, never hurts. It never hurts to go to a wholesaler and say, hey, I got a food safety certificate, even though I didn't have to. So Patty said it was a really excellent class. So thank you, Patty, for that. So are there other questions specifically about food safety plans, about the different wholesale opportunities that we have here? If not, I'm really good with coming up with questions. And feel free to unmic yourself as well.
Can I ask a question? I'm really curious who's in the room, met a few people, like what kinds of, I know there's some microgreens, vegetable farmers, who?
Yeah, does
Who are
everyone
you?
want to put in chat what you grow or produce? Just drop it in chat. And or what you're looking to sell, because that might be different. Who knows?
In our group, we sort of, one of the farmers was saying like, well, you have to like have so much experience and grow so much in order to get access to certain things. It's like the chicken and egg, right? You need like a certain amount of experience before you can get wholesale, but how do you get, like how do you get the experience if you don't have the market? So it is hard. That put local on your tray. We have a farm to school directory that I didn't mention, which is for growers who want to be connected with schools. And it's a nice way to just kind of start getting yourself out there. And I do like to talk to all the growers that we put on there to see that you have, a few years, that you have certain systems set up, not to be overly rigid at all, but to make sure that you can succeed in the conversation with the school. So check that out. And if you feel like you need, some help getting to that, or what might some of those things be, it sounds like Click might be a great way to get some of that experience into the, because they're really well set up. Will be.
Well, while people are dropping in what they are growing or hoping to sell, speaking of Click, Chelsea, I would love to hear you talk a little bit more about the processing component. So a lot of farmers honestly don't have the time to process stuff. Also, they don't have commercial kitchens, but Click helps take part of that away, that barrier. So if they have the time, say if they have a whole bunch of winter squash that are butternut, and they have the time in the winter when things are calmed down to peel it and cut it up into cubes, that may make it more appealing for some wholesale account. But how does that all play in? Because will Click potentially be doing some of that processing for farmers and then sell it to other producers? I mean, not producers, but wholesale buyers?
Yeah, so that is the goal. Over the last 6 years, when we've kind of worked with farmers, a lot of the feedback is exactly what you said. We just don't have the time to do that or the capacity to be processing all the food. So we really just want to give it to you, and there's two options. Either we buy it from them, make a product, say we buy a bunch of tomatoes from them, we make a tomato sauce, and then we in turn sell that tomato sauce. Or we are purchasing those tomatoes from them, and then distributing that to our different avenues. So whether that be schools or this food box program or different entities as we grow. Creating a processing kitchen is a huge feat. So we're kind of like we have with food entrepreneurs by creating these commercial kitchens, we're kind of creating this processing space to offer farmers to process their food, or open it up to farmers to process the food themselves in the commercial kitchen space that's required. So I guess that's kind of a lot of answers, but this processing kitchen that we are going to go under construction is really just to take away, the really expensive costs and equipment and all these things that are necessary to process the food. And also a lot of places like packaging or processing plants and things require a really large batch of farmers to sell huge amounts in order to be allowed to be processed. But we are kind of filling that niche for small batches. So we will be offering our space for small batches as well.
Wonderful. So it sounds like you'll buy the same product, like carrots from 5 different farms, and sell it to one wholesale buyer, if that's correct. So aggregating some of the products.
Right. So like when we were listening to the CT farm to school, you know, the farms or the school is asking for a large quantity of all these carrots. Whereas one farm might not be able to provide that amount. We're bringing these farmers together as a collaborative so that they can meet those requirements to get the local food in schools or different entities or organizations.
Great. So there was a quick question in the chat. Click sounds great. Any plans to grow to the western half of the state? Which I'm sure Click does not have plans, but western half of the state. Shannon, I believe that you could probably answer this question. Are you in the middle of dealing with your kids too? You're muted.
Yes, but for the western half of the state, there's the Northwest Connecticut Food Hub, Northwest Connecticut Regional Food Hub out of Torrington. And whoever's fastest, I can drop the link in. Renee Giroux runs that, and they are serving a lot of schools. So between them and folks here focusing on the northeastern Connecticut, that would be great to be connected with Northwest Connecticut Food Hub. They have some ability to do some flash freezing. That's their light processing. Thanks, Becca. Yeah.
And is Brass City Harvest also serving as an aggregator of products as well?
Yes.
They're not processing, correct?
Sorry, I should start. Yeah, Brass City Harvest, which is out of Waterbury, Connecticut. Is it Stephanie? My brain not working. Who they have a new director there. So, and they have been, I just visited there recently. They are getting their ordering system, like they're redoing their online management system. So I do encourage people to reach out to them as well if you're interested in that in the western half of the state.
And Shannon, if you would be willing to drop those emails in the chat, because I don't have them, that would be wonderful. So yeah, there's lots of folks. It's tricky. There's like little programs throughout the state that are doing really interesting things, and you just need to find the people that know the people that know the people. So, and that's why panels like these are so great, because they're often connected to so many different strands of what's happening. So yeah. So I just wanted to shout out some of the things that were dropped in the chat for things that people were growing and wanting to sell. Mixed veggies, excelling in tomatoes, broccoli, peas, sunflower and radish microgreens, diversified veg, but also growing log-grown mushrooms and maple syrup. This is fun, game bird meat. So let's get game bird meat into schools, guys. I think that's going to be my new goal in the next couple of years. I want to see kids eating game bird. Tomatoes, eggplant, okra, corn, sweet potato squash, pork, sweet corn, variety of veggies, beef. So a lot of really great and diverse products that, you know, all of those could pretty much be used in any of these programs.